Hi, my name's Grimes, and you're listening to The Interview Show.
All right, welcome to the interview show. This is Scott Wood, your host. We're deep in the bowels of the Electric Owl Social Club, and I'm sitting here in the green room with Grimes. That's right. This week, it's Scott Wood versus Grimes. Hi, Grimes.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm great.
Oh, good. Sorry.
You're a lot more giggly than I expected.
It's just, it's like, on the spot, you have to talk on the radio. I don't know. I'm not a good public speaker.
Fair enough. Okay, I'm going to jump right in there. Are you ready for some questions?
Yep.
Okay, so the first track that we've heard is Vanessa, and I would love it if you could talk a little bit about that track.
Well, this is a really old track. I actually made it kind of this time last year. But it was sort of inspired by a lot. I was listening to the radio a lot because I was home for Christmas, and so I was just driving my parents' car because I don't normally drive, so I'd be listening to top 40 or whatever. And so I was I'd really like to try making something that sounds like Rihanna or something, because it sounds really good, obviously. And previous to that, I'd always just made really kind of dark experimental music. So I don't know. It was Vanessa was sort of the first pop song I made, and then I got into it from there. It's a jumping off point.
All right, so you came up in what's been called the illegal DIY culture in Montreal. I was hoping that you could talk about your days coming up in that scene.
I guess it was just really all the best venues in Montreal are kind of not legal venues, because they're warehouses and stuff, because there's just a lot of, they don't have to close at a certain hour. In fact, they often start after midnight or something. You can be really loud, and you can bring in your own alcohol and stuff, because no one wants to pay $4 for a drink, obviously. So I just feel a lot of Montreal's scene kind of coalesces around these kind of venues, I guess. And same with me. The first shows I played were all at warehouses, mostly Labsinthes, which doesn't exist anymore. But that's a cool warehouse, or it was a cool warehouse in Montreal. And it was run by the guy who now runs my label. So when the warehouse shut down, then he kind of just started a label, because there's had started being bands that played there regularly, and that just kind of made up the roster of the label. So it was just sort of a really organic coming up, and all these bands are obviously associated with each other because they all played all the same venues, and then we're all suddenly on the same label. So it was kind of
A lot of people might be envious of that kind of scene.
Yeah, well, it's pretty easy to create. You just have to live in a city that's really cheap and stuff. Montreal is really incredibly affordable. The downside is that there's crackheads in the hallway and stuff, but that's not a big deal if I think it's a small price to pay for no one has a job there, for instance, so this kind of thing is really possible, I guess. One thing that's really distinct about Montreal is that the music people make is definitely really pop oriented or dance oriented, because it's often really catered to sort of a late night party kind of thing, but it's definitely really also driven by psychedelic drugs or whatever the fuck people do. It tends to get really weird. It's not I don't know, it's taking formulas that might be more, might be more, I don't know, radio type music. For me, and for a lot of the other singers I know, our big influences would be Mariah Carey, Beyonce, stuff like that. But then, coupling that with something more experimental and psychedelic or noise oriented. Often there'll be a band, a sort of harsh noise band, and then there'll be me or something on a bill. That would not be unheard of at all. And, I think people really like to just get deep into it. I don't know, it's just a real...
I think that's why people get so excited about you.
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, so your press kit even says that you can't read music and you don't understand music theory or notation. And I was hoping you could talk about how this might have benefited you and hurt you, if hurt's the right word, a positive and a negative.
Yeah, I didn't know my press kit said that. That sucks. I really am trying to not have that be part of the idea of what Grimes is, because I think it's sort of an excuse or something to I don't know. I don't read music, but I'm a producer. I'm not a musician. Like I don't play any instruments or anything, so I'm not really concerned with that. It doesn't really play into my approach to sound, which is, I would say, more on the scientific end or just on the, I don't know. I feel like not being explicitly aware of like what I'm doing on like, the in terms of like notation, whatever, like I feel like it doesn't hurt me at all and probably allows me to be a bit more free, if anything. But I also just don't want to like emphasize that aspect of like what I'm doing, because I feel like it's, I don't know, it immediately, like as soon as that was like public knowledge, it became this like buzz thing. But it's like I know tons of musicians that are very successful in the industry that can't read music, and I just don't think it should be, a thing that is like even just in the consciousness, because I don't know, it's always like, oh, you've overcome this thing, but there's like nothing to overcome or something. I don't know.
Yeah. If I ignore the overcoming thing, I think that it might add to the mystique of rawness to what you do.
Yeah, I would say that's, it depends, because I've talked to people who are really classically trained and they all approach it differently. Some people like, it doesn't, they use it really well, and other people I know feel like it hinders them a little bit because they can't sort of escape like a logic or like a muscle memory kind of thing associated with, certain notes or keys or whatever. I know in terms of like visual art, because I do a lot of like painting and stuff, I find it very hard sometimes, because I've been doing it from a really young age, to break certain like just patterns I always get into, whereas music was like really something that I started doing like, after I was 20. So there was just nothing, there was no training or anything at all that like, I forget what the question was, actually.
It's all good. I'll give you another one. How about if you could compare and contrast what you feel is somebody who's come from a strong music background with what you bring to the table?
I don't know. Sometimes when I jam with people who come from a strong music background, they're more, not that I jam with people all the time or anything, but it's a lot easier for them to just, I don't know, hear a song and like reproduce it or something. I'd say the one thing about it that I don't like is that I can't like think of a melody and reproduce that. Like I wouldn't know where to start, or like, I can like play around and see if I can find the note, and then I've usually forgotten it by the time I've done that. But, so that's sort of like a major difference, I think, is people who are trained in music can be like, oh yeah, that, and then do it. And just, it would be nice if I could like, play the piano properly. I could probably have something more complex if I was like, more physically capable of actually like performing it. Hi, my name's Grimes, and you're listening to The Interview Show. Grimes, and you're listening to The Interview Show.
All right, Grimes, I would love it if you could tell me a little bit about your song, Crystal Ball.
This song was just, it's like a love of life song. I just came home one day and I was like, I really want to make music. And then I just was feeling really happy, and I just made that song just because it fucking felt really good to make it. And so it's just, I don't know, I just feel like it's kind of exploding with happiness, which not much of my music has. So I don't know, it's just my happy song. Or something. I don't know.
Okay, so you've called your sound post-internet, and I would love it if you could talk some more about that.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of an unintentional, I just said that in passing, but I guess it's kind of interesting because a lot of people bring that up and try to argue with me about it, but I think what I was specifically referring to is that people who are sort of maybe a bit older than me, and then my age and younger than me, during our adolescence, when you're sort of really developing a lot of strong neural pathways, anyone who wasn't exposed to the internet at that age, so all the generations before us, would have a sort of limited access to music because you just buy it or you get it at the record store. There's whatever is there, and then that's all your options. Whereas for me and my friends and people I know, I just feel there was just sort of this infinite exposure to music, and so potentially a more complex sort of series of neural pathways could have developed, because that's just a really, people learn languages better at that time, people develop skills better at that time. It's just a period of extreme growth, and then immediately afterwards there's kind of pruning of all the parts of your brain that you're not using. So I just feel that inherently, because of things like Napster, people would just have a way broader sort of there would be a way wider selection of music that you would have access to, and therefore, and you notice that with music coming out in the last sort of decade, that the genre has kind of disappeared, and it's become a lot more just huge, people just pulling from everywhere, and I think that's probably due to that kind of influence.
Totally. One of the things I love about you is that your music sounds so otherworldly, but then I'll read an interview with you and you'll be like, this song is about how I feel when I hear a really great Beyonce song.
Yeah, well, that's just Vanessa. I don't know. That was kind of I don't just make vapid music that's referencing pop music, but that one was just kind of an exercise in playing pop music. But then in the process, I learned how to produce a good pop song, which for me was always, I really need music to be danceable when I'm playing it live. And so then that kind of set off this whole new area. I forget what the question was again. But
just the contrast between, people are going to be hearing your music, a lot of people for the first time. And I just like the contrast between what you do and the music that you constantly reference, like Beyonce or Christina Aguilera.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess there's obviously tangible things. I'd say a lot of my references are more subconscious, but just because I listen to a lot of that music, it inherently sort of influences me. But then, I'd say two of my biggest musical influences are sort of medieval organum music, Pergolesi, Periton, Hildegard von Bingen, stuff that's really religious and kind of beautiful and epic and tons of voices and really just ethereal and non-referential to what would be on Earth. But then I also am totally obsessed with Mariah Carey, and so I feel those two things are the most sort of consistent clash in the music that I make, and it kind of ends up being this heavenly dance music or something, as far as what I'm trying to or maybe not even trying to achieve, but just what seems the most immediately viscerally pleasurable or something. But yeah, I don't know, that's yeah.
Your record Halfaxa has been associated with the Witch House movement, so I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about that.
I do think Witch House is a really interesting kind of movement. I know it's got kind of a bad reputation sometimes, and there's a lot of complete shit out there as far as Witch House music goes. But I don't know. For me, the way I sort of saw it was that you know, like for me, the music on the radio when I was like a kid, or like my two sort of biggest influences were probably like Outkast and Marilyn Manson. And I kind of see Witch House as like hip hop meeting goth in a way. Like it's, you know, it's got sort of like drony elements of goth music and a lot of elements from like DJ Screw and kind of like hip hop beats really slowed down. And I mean, it is kind of like a rip-off of like earlier movements. Like I do think that like you listen to a lot of DJ Screw or something and it just does sound like Witch House, but I think it gets like less credit because maybe it happened too soon or not enough people heard it or whatever. But I do think Witch House is kind of like an interesting movement in that regard because it's like, I don't know, I feel like hip hop and goth music are both kind of sort of racially segregated types of music, and like from, I don't know, I think people are kind of like getting over those sort of things a bit and everything's kind of melting together, and I think that's something that's really kind of nice about like the concept of Witch House. That said, I don't think it's often well realized, but I don't know, Halfaxa for me it wasn't meant to be a Witch House record, but when it came out, people on the internet were like, oh, this is a Witch House record, and then I looked up what Witch House was as a response to that, and then, you know, at that point I didn't have a problem being associated with it because I thought it was cool, and it's nice that, like, you know, different people could come to the same artistic conclusion kind of, you know, just because of like the same sort of cultural influence that they might have had. Yeah, I think it's really, like, Witch House is very telling of, like, sort of, like, my generation. It's, like, a very, like, obvious, like, musical conclusion based on, like, you know, what was popular in the 90s and what people, like, listened to in the early 2000s, late 90s. But the thing with Halfaxa is I wasn't explicitly thinking about Witch House. I was just, you know, doing what I wanted to do. But, I mean, you know, I'd like, listen to Ciara and I'd be like, oh, I love this. But then I'd be listening to, like, Skinny Puppy or something. Or even, I mean, Burial was a huge influence for me for that record. And I feel like Burial is kind of Witch House, even though it's, like, pre-Witch House, theoretically.
All right, Grimes, thank you very much for your time tonight. I really appreciate talking to you. It's been great. I love it at the end of the show if I can get the artist to pick a track off their current record or their catalog, whatever they like, and talk about it as we bring up the music.
Cool. Well, the song is called Oblivion, and it's a pretty heavy song. It's about, like, you know, a lot of times when I walk home at night, like, creepy guys, like, follow me or something. Like, I have, like, I feel really unsafe in my neighborhood, and it's just kind of about the feeling of, like, I don't know, like, this sort of, like, sexual fear that, like, a woman feels when she's, like, going home at night alone, which, like, really fucking sucks. And it's kind of like you feel kind of powerless or something. So this song's kind of just, I don't know, like, me being, like, really pissed about that, I guess, and, like, you know, I don't know, just, like, my reaction to that, like.
Awesome. So we've got Oblivion by Grimes. Thanks, Grimes.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name's Grimes, and you're listening to The Interview Show.